There is a large generation gap in the workplace, and we will need to do something as leaders to bridge that gap. And I think the first thing we need to do is to recognize that it exists. I firmly believe that Gen Z coming in will shift the workplace more than any other generation has in many, many decades. So as Gen Z enters the workforce, I think it's important to recognize and value the different approaches that Gen Z is bringing to the corporate world. Because I don't think we are fully prepared and ready to change the way we work to accommodate younger generations and meet their expectations. And we need to talk about this way more because there is a large generation gap in the workplace. And leaders will have to adapt and show great inclusive abilities to bridge that gap. And I don't think it's going to be that easy because I think there are major differences between the different generations we have currently in the workforce. Let me give you some examples. If we look at Gen Z, the next generation who is currently entering the workforce, they approach communication in a very different way compared to older generations. They really favor concise, short communication, mainly done through digital platforms. They don't like face-to-face long meetings or workshops. They like to use DMs and communicate directly with people. Gen Z also favors work-life balance like no other generation has before. They will prioritize time outside of work for their hobbies and for their mental health. They care about having personal interests that are not linked to work. And they don't want to make work their whole lifestyle. Gen Z also has a different approach to feedback and recognition. Younger employees want ongoing, instant feedback. They want it in an informal way, and they want it all the time. If something goes well, they need to know right away. If something goes bad, they'd like to know right away. And this is not how we've approached feedback and recognition. We have these yearly cycle for reviewing our employees. But with the younger generations, we need to adjust, and we need to do it on an ongoing basis. Younger generations also have a different approach to authority. They prefer collaborative leadership where everyone has room to speak, and they don't believe so much in the hierarchy anymore. Not as much as older generations have in the past. Younger generations also care way more about CSR and diversity and inclusion. They will favor this in their choice of employer. And I'm not saying that older people don't care about these things, but for younger generations, this has become critical. They will choose companies that demonstrate they care about social and environmental issues. And these are just a few differences between the generations. But in my opinion, the gap is actually really big. And we will need to do something as leaders to bridge that gap. And I think the first thing we need to do is to recognize that it exists. And we need to stop pretending that this is just one more generation coming in and they have some small requests that are different. I firmly believe that Gen Z coming in will shift the workplace more than any other generation has in many, many decades. So first, we need to recognize the gap. And we need to stop expecting Gen Z to adopt and change and accept the old ways, because I really don't think they will. So we need to acknowledge that a change is coming, and we need to embrace it, and we need to be part of it. Then the next thing we need to do as leaders is to embrace diversity of perspective and the fact that everyone coming into the workplace can bring something different, old and young. And to do that, as leaders, our communication skills are going to become even more critical than they have before. We will need to adapt our communication style to the different generations, use digital tools with people who prefer that, use face-to-face meetings for others. And more importantly than anything else, we will also have to foster a culture of understanding. It will be important for us to encourage all team members to share their experiences, their insights, and their expectations, especially to break down the stereotypes between the different generations. We will also have to foster collaboration across different age groups. And to do that, I personally believe that mentorship is one of the best ways, but not a one-way mentorship. A two-way mentorship, when old and young people come together and learn from each other and learn to value what each other brings to the table. And finally, I think the last thing we need to do as leaders to foster collaboration across the different generations is to make sure that everyone understands that there are preferred working styles for each generation. But there is no one style that is better than all others. They are just preferences. And us as leaders will have to create an environment where everyone can find themselves and feel comfortable and included. Overall, through everything I've just said, I think the most important common denominator to make sure that we can bridge the generational gap in the workplace is awareness. We need to be aware that there is a gap and we need to manage it and make it possible for everyone, regardless of their age, to feel welcome and included at work.